It was the classic Tinder setup. We were a match. He had some sly and saucy profile bio that immediately spoke to my sarcastic self. We started texting. The conversation was right away witty and full of good-natured humor. He was from England, and there was talk about exchanging a brand new tube of toothpaste and roll of quarters in exchange for a green card by execution of a sham marriage. I'm just about out of toothpaste, and I'm always in need of getting laundry done. So clearly, match made in heaven. It's the exact kind of good-hearted conversation I like to start these things out with. We had talked about getting drinks that Saturday, but I had tentative plans with a friend of mine. When Saturday came, my friend had to leave the city earlier on, so I messaged the British lad to see if he was up for a drink or two. He, of course, was. Maybe guys being so readily available should be taken as a bad sign. We had a place, a time, and all I needed to do was apply a little eyeliner. Rimmel, London taught me the Brits like eyeliner. We got our drinks, and right off the bat the conversation was a recipe of dry humor and overly sarcastic remarks, which had me in giggles. We drank our cocktails, and talked and laughed. The night was flowing so smoothly. He had to leave to go to a friend's birthday party, and I was going to meet up with another friend of mine. As we headed out to the street, he pulls me in and gives me one of those incredible random spur-of-the-moment kisses. I'm like, well now, that's actually a pretty great way to end the night. Thanks, British lad. He then insists I come along with him to his friend's party. It was at a lounge nearby in the city. Well, the guy just spur-of-the-moment kissed me, and I had melted. I obviously couldn't say no. I mean, I could, but who the hell wants to execute self-control when you're melting? We made our way to the lounge, and there's a line out the door, around the block. He coolly asks if instead I want to see an incredible view. And I mean, who doesn't want to see an incredible view? I follow him along for a few blocks, and we find ourselves at these two prominent, well-known buildings in Chicago. I realize he lives here. Again, melting. He takes me up to the roof where the view is immaculate. Like, duh, of course it is. I shouldn't have expected anything else. He then leads me into his place, and I begin the cliché date scene. Now, we start making out. He's a pretty great kisser. And I start to take things to the bed. He's taking off my clothes and taking his off. Pretty passionate stuff, right? Like, things are totally gonna be happening any moment now, right? Well, he then suddenly stops and goes, yeah, nothing is gonna happen. I'm like, wait, what? Then kind of hostily he says, I don't have an erection. Nothing is going to happen. Like, what don't you get? Well, I for one am a little perplexed. I had experienced something similar to this before with a previous guy I dated, though, so I had an idea of what was maybe happening. I got up and started to redress myself. Not nearly as sexy as undressing myself, mind you. I ask him what I can do. He replies with, you'd better just leave. I'm like, well, okay. I start to get my shoes on, get my phone and purse. I tried to text the other friend I had been talking with earlier to see if I could meet up with them. Mr. British, though, became very adamant that I leave. Like, now. He suddenly was super pissy and mean. Like, imagine that girl, or yourself, when you're on period and it's been about 2 hours since you've consumed chocolate. Yes, that kind of pissy and mean. I was so thrown off. I was like, hey man, what's your deal? I'm finding where my friends are, and getting an Uber. He responded, and by respond I mean lashes out angrily by saying, you can do that downstairs, get out. I was like, what the hell does this classy talking British man go from swooning me on rooftops and getting me to his bed to angrily ordering me out of his apartment. I'm trying to get myself together, and he's like, "Just get out, leave." I ask him why did he even bring me here at all. He rolls his eyes and sighs in dramatic exasperation, and again tells me to get out. As if, yes, I am the crazy one here in this scenario. Clearly. I get out, and don't say anything to him, as he glares at me as I step out the door. I make my way through the hall, trying to remember where the elevators are. As I'm waiting for my elevator, it begins. Oh yes, panic attack is now definitely approaching. Congratulations, British Tinder man, you swiped right on the girl who is prone to panic attacks. I tell myself, no, this is not going to happen. As I transcend onto the elevator, it is fully present. I am shaking, lightheaded, dizzy, spinning, but not the fun kind. Oh, and of course, there is someone on the elevator. Someone there to witness my falling apart. Perfect. It's a guy around my age. He turns around and asks if I'm okay. I try to nod my head and say, "Oh yes, everything is good, please don't mind me and irrational self at all, and go back to your evening." At this point, I think what I need is some fucking incredible luck, though. But I am probably not going to find it on Tinder. So here's to you, Chicago Tinder man. I'm officially signing off the app. Good night, and fucking incredible luck to all of you. So once, I matched with this guy who was pretty cute, and I decided to tell him the story of the time I started a riot in Walmart. And he's so smitten by my tale of debauchery, he asks if I want to hook up. I say sure. I don't usually just do hookups with people from Tinder. That's what Grindr is for. But what the hell, right? He walked in my place, and we both just stared at each other really stupidly. He just looked at the boxes for my roommate moving out, and he started reading the box labels while I waited for him to do something not awkward. Once he had read every label, he walked into a random room, which only by coincidence happened to be my bedroom, since there are only 3 doors in the apartment, and all of them were closed. And then he pushed me onto my bed and started kissing me. But almost immediately after we started, he got a nosebleed, and it went all over my face, and on my shirt, and my sheets. It went everywhere. And when I went to get toilet paper, it turned out my roommate had packed it all up, and must have moved it already. And there weren't napkins or paper towels either. So there's this guy in my apartment, and he's just bleeding all over the carpet as I frantically look for something to clog his face with. He bled some on my kitchen towels, but decides against using it. And then he went and bled in my shower towel, and decided the same thing. I eventually have to ask him to stand over the sink while he bleeds. But not after there's just a trail of blood all through my apartment. So he ended up taking the kitchen towel. Like hell I'm ever using that towel again. And he offered to buy me new bed sheets. I agree, since I don't know what else I would sleep on. I had to drive since he was using both hands to deal with his blood. On the way to the store, he's still just pouring blood like a fountain. Apparently, he gets some all the time. While we were driving there, he told me the story of the time he got a nosebleed so bad that he fell, wasn't physically able to get up, and started vomiting all over himself. Apparently, it's normal for nosebleeds to somehow affect motor functions, and your ability to digest food, or there is something deeply wrong with him, and undiagnosed. The whole time I was speeding to the store, because there isn't much towel left for him to soak in blood. And I get a flat tire. But it's no big deal. I know how to switch in my spare. So I'm on the ground while this guy is wringing out his blood towel. He honestly looks like a psycho murderer, covered in blood, grinning while he wrings out a nauseating amount of blood from a dish rag. Then he walked over me and asked to help with the tire. And, as he offers, he starts dripping blood on me again. It gets all over the shirt I had switched into, just a cheap white v-neck. And since it was obviously stained, I took it off and gave it to him to wipe the blood out of my car. And bleed into. I'm trying to work the jack, and this guy decides he still wanted to have sex. Since about 30 minutes into replacing the tire, this guy's nosebleed finally stops. The street is fairly abandoned, but we're right under a streetlight. And his advances were weird as hell. He took off his own shirt and laid down on the ground, cuddling against me with his bare skin on the asphalt. I wasn't in the mood for it, so I turned it down entirely. Eventually I got the new tire on, and we made our way to the store. The whole drive he was telling me how good I looked shirtless, while I didn't say a word. So I asked him to get me a shirt before I go into the store, since my shirt was half soaked in his blood. Walmart's undershirts are like $2, so he agrees. He went into the store and came back with a shirt. When we went into the store, the guy started talking about how nervous he was to be there, since apparently he had once been kicked out of this Walmart for stripping naked there while high on LSD, and opening all the boxes of cereal. But I found a set of sheets, and we got to the checkout line, and he was still freaking out. He thought that if he scanned his credit card, Walmart security will find him, and arrest him for what he did the last time he was there. I reminded him that he had already bought something, so it shouldn't be a big deal. And then he said, way too loud, that he had stolen the shirt I was wearing. So now I was freaking out too. And it turned out I forgot to remove the sticker, too. So we both rushed the fuck out of the store. I'm tired of trying to convince him to buy the sheets, the whole fucking reason we went to the store. And we left. We drove back in silence, and he started to get another nosebleed. I stopped the car, asked him to get out, and I drove away. I met a guy on Tinder, seemed nice, fairly attractive. Seemed a little vanilla, actually. He didn't drink or smoke, wanted to be a meteorologist, and was super close with his grandfather, gentlemanly and family-oriented. Went to Starbucks and talked for a couple of hours. It was nice. So I set up another date. We went for ice cream and again talked for a while. We were sitting outside and I mentioned something about how guys have obvious body parts to be attracted to on a woman, while girls pick out things like calves and such. He gets real weird and says, I don't know if I should tell you this. So, of course, I prod him until he tells me. So first he says he's got a foot fetish. That's not super strange, and I'm mostly curious, so I ask him tons of questions about it. He'd never been in a serious relationship, so I asked him if he could handle being with a girl who wasn't into it. At least long enough to feel love towards him. And he said, no. I've called a girl from Backpages a couple of times, because I couldn't take it anymore. Still not that weird. Then he asks if I have ever heard of a crush fetish. He tells me not to Google it because it'll freak me out. Still haven't, never will. There are 2 levels of a crush fetish. Level 1, becoming aroused by watching someone crush invertebrate animals under their feet. Like bugs, which was his fetish. And level 2, watching someone crush vertebrate animals like bunnies or kittens. This got me thinking about our previous date. We had a conversation on the first date about how I'd been getting a lot more bugs in my room that summer. So I'd been like squashing bugs all fucking day. And he says that really got him going. I realized he had asked me what kind of shoes I typically wear, and I just brushed it off and answered him. I was wearing moccasins and, being a pretty open person, told him how they make my feet smelly, so I tried to avoid them. He told me that I got really turned on when you said that. I'd love to smell your shoes if you'd let me. Among other very forward, very specific, and unwelcome statements about what turned him on about me. Best part, I told him a week or so later that I'd met someone, and that we should end our communications. He texted me a few months later, 4 or 5 times, asking me for my help, and he'd pay me to let him do stuff with my feet. Edit. For those who simply need to know about the fucking bugs. My house is located in the woods. It was summertime. My room is located in the basement. It wasn't an infestation. Just some spiders and the occasional thousand-legger, which like to hang out in my bedroom and eat the aforementioned spiders. They had to be squished. So I wouldn't call myself a Tinder addict, but I've been using it for quite some time, and actually have gone on a lot of Tinder dates. I'm known as the Tinder veteran by my friends, and even my younger sister. Anyways, this guy I matched probably 2 months ago now. We hit it off, and I would be a liar if I didn't say he was good looking in his pictures. We ended up texting and calling for about a week, before deciding to meet in person. We ended up picking a day after I worked, and it was supposed to be a local bar close to where I work. Keep in mind, I worked half an hour drive home from work. So fast forward to the big day. I didn't end up sleeping till about 5 a.m. this day, and had to wake up to go to work at 7. Worked a full 12-hour day, and left to meet with this guy. By this time, I didn't realize how tired I actually was until I got to my car. I thought about texting him to ask to rain check, as I really wanted to go home and just lay down or take a bath. Instead, I sucked it up and went to go meet him at the bar, which was supposed to be 5 minutes away. Ends up being 15 minutes away from work and 45 minutes away from home. Ugh. I follow my Google Maps to a part of town I have never been to. Arrive at the location, but end up circling the block 5 times because there were 0 signs indicating the bar was at this location. So I end up parking my car in this dimly lit parking lot looking for this place. Scared shitless, I start thinking up all the awful scenarios that would happen to me. So I see these people leaving this old beat-up looking building. I looked and saw a wooden sign that had the name of the bar written on it. Now this just reminded me of a bad horror movie or something, but having made plans and being one to not stand people up, I get out of the car and walk to the front door and go inside. Texted the guy saying, "I'm here, where are you?" Instead of getting a reply like, "Oh, I'm sitting by wherever," I get, "Come inside, I'm here," like, okay, I know you're here. Odd. I go inside. Stand by the door, looking for the one person who might be looking toward the door. Finally, this guy sitting at the bar looks at me and I walk up to him. Bam! It hits me. He looks absolutely nothing like his pictures. Now at this point, I thought, just leave. You don't owe to this guy who lied online any of your time. But I decided to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I went and joined him. We start talking, but he's super shady. He's already eating and probably had a couple of drinks as he was here beforehand with a buddy or something. I explained my situation of the day and apologized for my mediocre company, to which he was annoyed at, as though I was lying. We didn't end up talking much, as he was constantly on his phone and eating, so I ended up just sitting there and watching highlights of a basketball game, trying to understand what's going on. He finally puts down his phone and starts saying how I should relax a bit more and have a drink instead of water, that I should share his food with him, and also give him a kiss on the cheek. I didn't agree and politely declined each of his offers, to which he did not take well. He started getting angry toward me and a bit aggressive, pulling on my chair, trying to get my sweater off me, trying to touch me and so forth. Then he went off to call me snobby, the worst company ever. Mind you, I never have my phone out when I'm on a date, to be polite and let them know that they have my full attention, that I'm lazy and not worth his time. At this time, he was starting to get a bit more physical, so I finally stood up Told him if that's how he feels, he shouldn't contact me anymore, and I was gonna go home. I was shaking so much when I was leaving that I had no idea what to do other than run to my car. Left the bar as fast as I could, calling one of my friends, thinking that he might have had someone waiting outside to kidnap me. Ran to my car, started it, and I was out of the parking lot faster than you can say uncle. It doesn't sound as bad, but he was not the guy I remember talking to or calling. Hey everyone, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to my latest Tinder episode. I'm not sure I'm making a regular thing of this, but every once in a while if I see stories here and there, it might be a good idea to gather them. They seem to be quite well received. Okay, I'm not going to ramble on too much here. I'm about to rush off and record my next subscribers video. So, until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.